Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into something that, well, it pretty much changes everything we thought we knew about how our childhood connects to our health as adults. We're talking about something called adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs for short.
And let's just jump right in with a pretty wild question, one that science is only now starting to wrap its head around. Is it possible that the stress you go through as a kid can actually make you age faster? So to even begin to tackle that question, we've got to understand the big idea behind it all. This is the concept that really shook up our understanding of childhood trauma. All right, let's get into it. So this term ACEs, it didn't just appear out of nowhere. It came from this huge, game-changing study back in the 90s. And what it does is give us a real, concrete way to talk about the kinds of tough stuff in childhood that can stick with us for a long, long time. Okay, so the original study zeroed in on these 10 specific things. They grouped them into three main buckets: abuse, neglect, and what they called household dysfunction, serious problems at home. And this is what they used to create something called an ACE score. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but this stuff must be pretty rare, right? Well, hold on. Look at this number. The CDC found that roughly two-thirds of all adults say they've experienced at least one of these. So this isn't some fringe issue, it's everywhere.
So how in the world do we figure all this out? It really all comes back to one single incredible study, a study that uncovered this invisible thread connecting what happens to us as kids to, well, to how healthy we are for the rest of our lives. And we're not talking about a small poll here. They surveyed over 17,000 adults. I mean, that's huge. It was one of the biggest deep dives ever into this link between childhood adversity and adult health. And what they found, honestly, it was revolutionary. And here's the absolute key finding. It's what scientists call a dose-response relationship. Fancy term, but what it means is simple. It's not just if you had one of these experiences, it's how many. Think of it like a staircase. Each new ACE is another step up in risk. The effects stack up.
Okay, but how big of a deal is this really? Just how much does the risk go up? Get ready, because these numbers are, frankly, they're staggering. This is where you really see the power of this. We're going to compare someone with 0 ACEs to someone with a score of 4 or more. First up, alcoholism. For someone with an ACE score of 4 or more, their risk is 700% higher than someone with 0. Let that sink in. Not 70%. 700. That's a 7 times greater risk. And it's not just alcohol. Look at this. The risk for using illicit drugs, it goes up by an unbelievable 1,100%. For something like chronic lung disease, COPD, it's almost 400% higher. Even the chance of getting cancer doubles. These aren't just little blips on a chart. These are life-altering increases in risk. Okay, so seeing all that, you have to ask, why? I mean, how on earth can something that happened when you were a kid have such a huge physical effect on your body as an adult? Well, the answer starts inside our heads, in the brain. So scientists make this really important distinction between good stress and bad stress. A healthy stress response is, you almost get into a car accident, your heart pounds, you get shaky, but then it passes, you calm down. But with ACEs, that fight or flight switch can get flipped on and just stay on. And when that happens over and over, that's when it becomes what they call toxic stress. I love this quote from a CDC expert because it makes it so clear. They said to think of a developing brain like a town being built. Every experience you have lays down a new road. The more you have that experience, the more that little path turns into a paved road, and then a highway. So positive experiences build highways for learning and connection. But repeated trauma, it builds superhighways for fear and stress. And think about it. If the brain is constantly in survival mode, always on high alert, it has to divert all its energy to just staying safe, right? So all the resources that should be going toward building the parts for learning, for managing your emotions, for making friends, all that gets rerouted to the security department. It physically changes how the brain gets wired. But it gets even crazier than that. The story goes deeper than just brain wiring. It goes all the way down to our cells. So let's circle all the way back to that question we started with about aging. First, we got to get this idea straight. There are 2 ways to think about age. There's your chronological age. That's just the number of candles on your birthday cake. Simple. But then there's your biological age. That's more like the mileage on your body's engine, the real wear and tear on your cells. And here's the kicker. Those two numbers aren't always in sync. And this is where it all connects in a really mind-blowing way. A 2023 study found that having a lot of ACEs is directly linked to faster epigenetic aging. Now, epigenetics sounds complicated, but just think of it like this. Your genes are the hardware, but epigenetics are the software, telling the hardware what to do. What this study found is that all that childhood stress can actually rewrite the software, telling your body's cells to age faster. So the takeaway here is huge. The stress from your childhood isn't just something you remember. It can leave a physical mark, a biological tattoo on your very cells that makes your body older than it should be. So that question we asked at the beginning, can childhood stress make you age faster? The science is pointing to a clear and resounding yes. Okay, I know this all sounds really heavy, and it is. But please, don't think that's the end of the story, because it's not. The same science that uncovered this problem is also showing us the solution, and it all revolves around one powerful word: resilience. And this CDC quote says it all. Our brains are not concrete. They can change. That amazing ability of the brain to be shaped by experience, what scientists call plasticity, it's a two-way street. Yes, trauma can shape it, but healing can reshape it. The past does not have to dictate the future. And the science is clear on this. Resilience isn't some magical trait you're born with. It's a skill you can build, like a muscle. Things like having safe, stable relationships, learning how to cope with stress, getting support from your community. These things literally build a protective shield that can buffer the effects of ACEs. So this leaves us with one final, huge idea to chew on. What happens if this understanding of ACEs becomes common knowledge? It completely changes the conversation. We stop looking at someone who is struggling and asking, what's wrong with you? And instead we start asking, what happened to you? And that one tiny shift in perspective, it could change everything. It's the key not just to healing, but to preventing this from happening to the next generation. Just imagine the impact that could have.